research interests include the model minority stereotype of Asians. It's an expertise area of his, as well as teaching for transformation and critical race theory. So I know there are a lot of you who are interested in doing research with critical race theory, so you can consider Dr. Hartlep among one. I said Hartlep. A little Freudian slip or something. So anyway, you can consider him among the critical race theory experts in the department, because I know a lot of you are looking for people to engage you with that material. Dr. Hartlep's research has been published in prestigious journals such as Critical Questions in Education, Diverse Issues in Higher Education, and International Journal of Research in Education Methodology. So his research interests, the foci of those really extend through the PK-12, 16 graduate education. It's education across the lifespan. He is the author of the Model Minority Stereotype, Demystifying Asian American Success, and also he's the author of the Model Minority Stereotype Reader, Critical and Challenging Readings for the 21st Century. He's also co-editor of Unhooking from Whiteness, The Key to Dismantling Racism in the United States, along with Cleveland Hayes. He has put together a Model Minority Stereotype Project website that he runs, which I included the link for that to the email in the email to you, and it has extensive, nearly 500 references on model minority stereotype literature. So that's a really valuable resource that he makes freely available to you that you can tap in if any of you want to go deeper with that. Dr. Hartlep's work is vital towards advancing equity and multicultural competencies, themes that not only cut across both of our courses and bringing you here tonight, but also themes that matter to all of us, really, as practitioners and scholars of higher education, administration, and as human beings. And we're very grateful to Dr. Hartlep for his time and his expertise in coming here tonight to speak with us and present to us and then engage us in dialogue following his presentation. So welcome and thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Dean and Dr. Otto. You might ask, why am I taking this talk? Well, as academics, we need digital footprints, and digital footprints allow people beyond this privileged space to access information. And one of those being, recently I was contacted by the federal government to come and talk. And I said, that's interesting, because usually, you know, what I say is critiquing the federal government. But I'll take it. So thank you for paying that money that they will compensate me for that trip. Okay, let's dig in. Today's talk is going to be Killing the Model Minority Stereotype, Asian American Counterstories and Complicity. And I'm toying with, that's the title of a forthcoming volume that I'm editing. And so I'm not sure if counterstories and complicity or complicity and counterstories, but hopefully what I say engages you. I use humor to engage folk, and then also provocativeness. So let me begin with a video I'm sure some of you have seen. Before I play the video though, let me say this. The model minority stereotype is like a bikini. What it reveals is suggestive, but what it conceals is vital. Hold on to that, because we'll return to that. Now, right, so hold on to that while you're watching this video, and then we'll get going.
Nice day, huh?
Yeah, it's not really great.
Where are you from? Your English is perfect.
Oh, we speak English there.
Where are you from?
Well, I was born in Orange County, but I never actually lived there.
I moved before that.
before I was born.
Right, where are your people from?
Well, my great-grandma was from Seoul.
Korean. I knew it. I was she's either Japanese or Korean. But I was leaning more towards Korean.
Amazing.
I'm just, there's a really good teriyaki barbecue place in my farm. So I actually really like kimchi.
Cool. What about you? Where are you from?
San Francisco.
But where are you from?
No, I'm sorry.
Really? You're Native American?
No, just regular American. Oh, well, I guess my grandparents are from England.
Oh, well. I think your people's fish and chips are amazing. Really? Weird? Must be a Korean thing. Fish and chips, pheasants, cotton cream, fingers and mash, Guinness, Perriman's lunch, a spot of tea, a pint of ale.
Recently saw that white gentleman on a Taco Bell commercial, so I think this commercial put him on the map. And I'm Korean, so I can relate to what that woman experienced, right? So being Asian or Asian American in the United States, let's talk about that context for a moment. There's this idea that you're foreign, you're not really American. Where are you from? My children often get that when they're with my wife, who's white, and they say, where are your children from? Did you adopt those kids? Right? Because they don't fit our understanding of what it means to be American. So by a show of hands or just shout out, we'll call and response. How would you articulate what would be the signature features of being American? Folk that don't get questioned about being American. Rednecks, okay.
Not having an accent.
Not having an accent, exactly. Other elements, phenotypical.
Blonde hair, white, black.
Absolutely. So even our United States President Obama, people speculated, right, the birther movement, that he was not even eligible to become our president. Now, I'm not eligible because I was born in Korea. I'm not naturally born. But Asians, to be Asian or Asian American means certain things. It also means, right, that Asians have eyes like this. They have black hair. It means the texture of their hair, maybe, their height. Oftentimes, South Asians are not categorized in this group, and they are lumped into this other group who the media likes to say they're terrorists, or they have political agendas that are not patriotic, right? So, with that context, I want to talk a little bit about the everyday language of white racism. Now, this is a fascinating book. Hill talks about how racism is used in everyday language. Not by just white people per se, but just in language. And what she says is, well, of many things, is that racism is oftentimes concealed as just either being humorous or just being normal, right? It's normalized. And she talks a lot about Spanish, how Spanish is utilized in very culturally insensitive and racist ways. Now, I just mentioned that white man, he was in a Taco Bell commercial. And the other day I took my daughters to Taco Bell. And when we were driving in the car through the drive-through window, I noticed the windows on Taco Bell, and they said, "Live Mas." Now, what the hell does that mean? Live Mas? Somebody. Live more, because Mas, yeah. So I speak Spanish, hablo español. Podemos hablar en español. So we know that Mas is more. That's kind of just, you don't even need to know Spanish. Those people that just told me it was more, raise your hand if you actually speak Spanish. You could go to Mexico or South America and you could live. Okay, put your hands on. Are there any ones that, people that don't speak Spanish, but they know that Mas is more? Okay, great. That is one instance of everyday language, right, that Jane articulates. She does it splendidly. You know, this Tex-Mex type of adios, amigo, right? You see it, and it's not just specifically Spanish. You see it, you might hear sayonara, or other things. Does anyone have other examples of language that's not English, but that is used in everyday language?
Adios.
Pardon?
Adios.
Adios, yeah, adios, amigo, or
Aloha.
aloha.
Chica. Like, hey, chica.
Hey, chica, yeah, what's chica mean?
Girl.
Girl, yeah. Any other? I think if we took our time and sat down, we could probably map out probably a handful more. However, one thing that I really found absent in her analysis was not discussing how Asian languages are mocked, right? And how that's racist. And so, keeping in mind today's talk is on the model minority stereotype, I want to bring to your attention an incident that happened in San Francisco a while back. An airplane came in, it came in too quickly, it descended too quickly, the nose nosedived. I don't think there were any deaths. But the Asiana Flight 214, the news, this is a caption, a screenshot of a news channel. And this is what they said. The pilot's names, Captain something wrong, otherwise something wrong. We too low. Holy fuck, right? Now I don't know what the bang the out one really translates. It's probably like bang out, but you get the picture here. Now this, ironically, and I'm just going to say ironically, insidiously was supposedly validated from the TSA and the airline folk. They said, you know, according to them, this is where that. But you know, clear as day, that those were faulty names. Right? That's one example. There are many examples. I'm not going to beat your head all of these examples. But I do want to say that the model minority stereotype, and we'll get to it in a second, has elements that it's become part of our everyday language. It's almost an identity. To be Asian means to be a model minority, along with a perpetual foreigner, like in the slide, right, with the woman, the Korean woman. Where are you from? No, where are you really from? Oh, okay. And it's a homogenization. You notice the white gentleman, he said, oh, I like kimchi, teriyaki. Basically, he dumped all Asian things into what he thought was to be Asian. And we know that Japanese food is different than Korean food, it's different than Chinese food, it's different than Hmong food, it's different than Cambodian food, it's different than Vietnamese food, the list goes on, different than Indian food. However, the model minority stereotype homogenizes differences, right? Now, Dr. Dean mentioned the Model Minority Stereotype Project website that I've put together. If you go to the website, you'll find a treasure trove of citations. And I did this intentionally because what I found was, as I was writing the dissertation, only a few citations were being cited, which is common in the academy. But what I found was that there were a lot of literature, that was meritorious. It was very solid, and it didn't get really the attention it deserved. So if you go to this website, excuse me, you'll find numerous citations.
487.
487?
Yes.
487. Book chapters, peer-reviewed journals, less scholarly type material, and I hate to use that term, less scholarly, because I consider myself to be a public intellectual, so it's all valuable. And it's from here I'd like to share kind of the progression of not only my research agenda, but then also kind of basically what I'm doing right now. So from the left to right, the first book was really the Model Minority Stereotype Project annotated. So it's an annotated bibliography, right? The second, middlemost book was, you know, as researchers I was thinking, you know, I've done the annotation, that's great. How do we do something that's fresh, a new perspective? And I thought, well, there has never been a reader published on the stereotype. Why not edit a reader that was not only new, but was helpful for students? So what you'll get in that book is chapters that are disaggregated. You have a chapter on Filipinos, you have a chapter on Chinese, you got a chapter on Korean, right, down the line. Then you got it thematic by different themes, right? So the fetishization of Asian Americans, cultural explanations for their success, etc., etc. The third, on the right, this book is looking at, again, complicity and counterstories. And today I'm going to talk to you, the last two slides of today's talk are complicity and counterstories. I'll break that down in more detail. But you can see a trend on even the cover art from my attitude as a researcher and scholar, right? Because I have a Japanese brother who helps me create the artwork. And you can see there's kind of like a visceral response. I'm really, you write that eyeball, it's like, that guy, he's looking pissed, right? And that one, he's gonna kick your ass, right? So so that's just my politics, right? That's how I carry myself. And behind you see all of the different stereotypes. You got the Madame Butterfly, geisha lady. You got the nerd guy. Then you got the rice caddy cat and the buck tooth, right? During the Chinese exclusion era. So let's ask ourselves the question, what is the model minority stereotype of Asians? Well, and I printed out handouts, so if you want to take notes, feel free. They're yours to keep. Kim and her in '89, they mentioned three functions of the stereotype. They say, right, there's an element of, it's used to deny benefits. So that might be, right, affirmative action, social services, money, resources. It also preserves the system, right? Very much status quo maintenance, right? And we'll get to that in a moment, how it does that. And then third, it blames minorities, right? It blames the victim in many respects. It absolves whiteness, it absolves politicians, bureaucrats from feeling bad, and it's used as rhetoric, right? Exaggeration to maintain the way things are. But the first bullet point, you can't really understand that if you're not considering the second bullet point. And the second bullet point is this. We have to understand it through a micro and a macro lens, an individual and an institutional way of knowing and understanding. So I'm going to break this down further. To me, fundamentally, why the stereotype is problematic is it perpetuates a single story. Anyone watch TED Talks in here?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Look up the danger of a single story. Some of you have heard Adichie's talk, but if you haven't, I recommend you could substitute African, Latino, and replace it with Asian, and it's the same message, right? It's problematic and dangerous to perpetuate a single narrative. And one narrative the stereotype, fully supports and fortifies is the American dream. Now, interestingly enough, I came across this Sports Illustrated cover, right? Michelle Kwan, Or is that Yamaguchi? Yamaguchi, I'm sorry, Yamaguchi. Kwan's on my next slide. Yamaguchi. And Yamaguchi, she is an American. She was born in California, right? But it's interesting, why, I'd like to hear from you guys, why on earth would they put that in red, that American dream? You know, she won a gold or what? Yeah.
I want to give her legitimacy.
Okay.
Because she's not American. To them, she's not viewed as American. So to say the American dream is to say, you see, even non-white people can reach the level that we have reached through hard work.
Absolutely. It's like a post-structuralist, that absence, presence, not there, you know. You could, if you just Google this, you'll get a lot of different critiques, and I encourage you to do that. I put it on the slide because it's a nice segue into the danger of a single story. Meritocracy is very much the American dream, this falsehood, right? That if you work hard, you pull your bootstraps up, you will be successful. And this cartoon, I apologize, it's small, even with this ginormous screen. It says on the first, this is for your own good, right? Oof, and he's climbing up there, and he gets up there, and he says, I'm really sorry about being racist before. I know better now. And the guy on the bottom, he's like, okay, give me a hand. He's like, oh, I can't do that. That'd be called reverse racism. Now, this is really interesting because you're all graduate students. You should know better now. You should know better that that kind of inverted logic doesn't work, doesn't fly, right? Affirmative action is not reverse racism because white people benefit the most from affirmative action. If you don't believe me, read the book When Affirmative Action Was Meant Whites by Katzenberg. It's a powerful book. And remember, I'm a critical race theorist, so as an Asian crit, that doesn't fly, right? But it's interesting because Asians have been used to maintain a colorblind world. And how have they been? Well, in the United States of America, our racial understanding is framed within a binary, black and white, right? So ask yourselves this question for a moment. How does the model minority stereotype fit within an existing black and white racial paradigm? Consequently, why does the stereotype persist? That's my response. Jean Claire Kim's response, racial triangulation theory, right? So how can Asian folk be used against black folk, brown folk, everyone, right? Well, they're triangulated. This is how triangulation works. On the left-hand side, you have the superior-inferior axes. And then on the bottommost axes, you have a foreigner-insider. So remember, the first thing I did was I set a context for today's talk. I said, right, you're not, that woman, jogger, where you from? I mean, where you really from? She is not American, right? She is not American, even though she was American, but she's not American. So she is a foreigner. She's a foreigner, right? She's on the left side, she's a foreigner. Whites, we just said, I said, what does it mean to be white? You said like a redneck, blonde hair, white skin, speak English with no dialect or accent, right? So they're very much insiders. And blacks, for the most part, yes, they're insiders. African Americans, African, when taking into consideration Asians. Now, let me explain this a little more simply. Asian Americans are less advantaged than whites, but more advantaged than blacks. Okay, I think you can follow that logic. People of Asian descent are less American than blacks, a term academics call perpetual foreigners, or forever foreigners. And thirdly, Asian Americans are threatening to whites as a yellow peril and to blacks as a model minority, right? So let's do some perspective taking for a moment. Here you have an Asian person who's considered by whites to be a model minority, doing great, going to UCLA, lives in a nice house, drives a BMW, living the American dream, goes to the library and studies his tail off every day. Then you have a black person over here. And white people, right, they look down on this black person, they think he's lazy, he doesn't work hard, he's low positioned and doesn't have upward mobility because his parents were lazy, they didn't go to school, right? This very pathological understanding of blackness. Blacks see Asians in some respects as a threat because, look, you know, if I was a black person, everyone was like giving props to these Asian folk, I would get really bitter. But then at the same time, whites see Asians as a threat because they're taking over. They're perceived to be taking over. And the phenomenon called New White Flight is going on in Silicon Valley. It's going on in other locations where white people are actually fleeing because they perceive there to be too many Asians. And if there are too many Asians, in their mind they think, well, my children are not going to compete against those Asians who are all nerds. Because if they do, they're going to lose, and they're not going to be able to get into the universities I want them to go to, right? So you get this really interesting dynamic going on of race relations, right? Essentially what it does is it pits black and brown people against one another and absolves whiteness, right? So whites are off the hook. Now, if you're white in the room and you're feeling uncomfortable, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about a system that privileges white people, so please don't feel like I'm singling you out. I'm talking about a more theoretically macro level, okay? Now, the perpetual foreigner. So Yamaguchi was the American Dream, Sports Illustrated cover. Now, let's turn our attention to this situation. Now, I probably could make a reasonable approximation that about 80% of you in this room knew what happened on ESPN about Jeremy Lin. Maybe I'm wrong, but if you do, I see some folk nodding their head. Tell me, what occurred with Jeremy Lin and the website ESPN? What transpired?
They gave him a name, a nickname that I guess in their mind is supposed to be a good thing, but it actually was pretty inappropriate and racist.
They put chink in the armor. Now, chink in the armor is an expression. It's like a weak point, right? A chink in the armor is a weak point. And they use that under a photo of him, right? Chink in the armor. Now, what's problematic by putting chink in the armor under an Asian person's picture?
Because chink is the racial flag.
Chink is a racial epithet. It's like wetback, it's like the N-word. It is not a term you use. Not in front of Asian people, not in front of any people. You should not use the term chink or gook or any of that, right? Even though we have politicians who openly talk about it. You know, McCain talks about the gooks all the time. He says, gook this, gook that. Now, I understand his biography of being a prisoner of war, but he should understand that it's a racist term. We don't use those terms. People were decrying the website in 2012. This happened 2 years ago. Wow, time flies. Were any of you still grad students, or are you all, what year are you grad students? Are you?
Third year.
Third year. Okay, so 2 years ago, right, Mike Cermak, you were in this lecture, you know, and this happened. So it's recent. Now, why do I put up this? I put this up because our memory is short. In '98, MSNBC's website did something similar. They said, American beats out Kwan. What's problematic with that line? American beats out Kwan.
They're both American.
Yeah, they're both American. Come on. Tara Lipinski. But look, Tara Lipinski is what it means to be a white person and to be American, right? She's white, she's blonde. I don't think she's cute, but people would say she's cute, right? What? You know, so that juxtaposition, right? That juxtaposition is absurd. And we have amnesia. We think, oh, Jeremy Lin was the first to endure this. Hell no, he was not. No, he was not. Let's be clear. Point of fact, that occurred in '98. How many years ago before Jeremy Lin? Well, 14 years? Man, most of my students were born in '98. So, now, let's talk about the origins. The last slide, if you turn your attention to that, it's just the first page is the abstract of a ludicrous, peer-reviewed journal article written by a man who was very much a racist. He's dead. He was a eugenicist. And if you don't know what a eugenicist is, you can't leave graduate school without knowing what eugenics was, so look it up. Don't have time to talk to you about it in much detail, but I will tell you, right, that in 98, was it 98 that this article was? 97? 97. 97. In the Journal of Intelligence, believe it or not. That was the title of the journal. He published this. Cranial size and IQ in Asian Americans from birth to age 7. And if you just read the abstract, you clearly understand what he believes about race and intelligence. Now, what's interesting, if you look at the literature in eugenics, right, Tuskegee, all of the feeble-minded studies and of children, special education, you'll discover some really crazy stuff. One of those things were researchers like Rushton and others who did studies on Asians and blacks. And this is what their contention is. It's crazy. Again, I'm being controversial because people don't fall asleep. I know late night class, you're probably all tired. The guy said you can't drink your caffeine. So let me tell you something. There were researchers that did studies and they said this. Asian people are really smart. They are really smart. Especially the men, man, they are smart. Their brains, their cranial sizes, their brain tissues, the gray matter, they got a lot of it. Their penises, the male penis size is very small, the Asians. Conversely, black men, very large penis size, very dumb. Very dumb. White men, middle of the road. Smarter than blacks, smaller penises, but, you know, they were kind of normalized as being normal. Now, you know all the inherent wrong issues and problems with IQ testing. But there were a series of articles and books published on this type of stuff, phrenology and all of that, physiognomy, and more. I won't be too graphic, but yeah, I don't want to even get too graphic, but crazy stuff, right? That flew as science. So we have to understand there's a pseudo-scientific underpinning and undercurrent of the model minority stereotype, because you know that there are stereotypes of the male anatomy for Asians that are very widespread and part of that everyday language, right? A Chinaman's chance. What does that mean? You got a Chinaman's chance. Does that mean you have a great opportunity, or like zilch? Zilch, like don't even try. You got a Chinaman's chance, right? So we have to understand that. But we also have to understand that it was state engineered. It was state engineered. It was concocted by bureaucrats and politicians. What do I mean by that? In 1966, a UC Berkeley sociologist by the name of William Peterson wrote this piece, Success Story, Japanese American Style, 1966, in the Times, New York Times magazine. It essentially did what I talked about racial triangulation. It said, look, Japanese folk, they're working hard, they're very industrious, they don't complain, and they're playing by the rules. Black people, on the other hand, the Negro is looking for a bailout, a welfare check, etc., etc. How do I know it's state engineered? Well, you have to understand that this was published after the Moynihan Report. The Moynihan Report. And the Moynihan Report really outed blacks for having a culture of poverty, which we know is patently false. If you want a good read Paul Gorski's work on culture of poverty. We know that's false. It's a falsehood. But it's state engineered because it was released at it was a perfect storm. Because if you have this report that's documenting a culture of poverty, and then time passes, and then this article says Asians are doing well because they're working hard in industry, they're industrious, it really goes back to that American dream, right? And that, hey, we do not need to give out welfare because the Asian people are doing well. The black people just need to try harder, right? And we know how problematic that is, right? That false narrative, that majoritarian stock story, as critical race theorists say, continued well on into the 70s, 80s, 90s, and now in the 2000s and 2010s. You have mainline magazine covers that really symbolically and discursively feed us this message that the Asians go to Stanford and they're whiz kids. And if you notice, to be Asian must mean to be East Asian, right? Because my darker brown South Asian brothers and sisters are not represented there, right? I told people that I'm the guy right there on the left-hand side, the blue dude. I had like a 4th grade, 5th grade picture. I looked just like him. But no, I certainly was not a whiz kid. Well, that could have been me, because I'm a young guy, and that was in the 80s. Why do we believe in the stereotype then? Well, again, the everyday language. we believe what we want to believe. We believe what we are sold, right? I think of this Doonesbury cartoon, and it says, right, and I agree with Mr. Gephardt's assertion that Asians are threatening our economic futures. We can see right here in our own school who gets into the best colleges in disproportionate numbers. Asian kids. It's not fair, thank you. And then she's leaving, right, because Jennifer is American. She's blonde, she's white, right? That certainly was an unusual essay, Jennifer, the teacher says. Thank you, Mr. McGowan. Unfortunately, it's racist. Are you sure? My parents helped me. Right? So we get the narratives from the #1 socializing agent, our families. Our moms, our dads, our grandmas, our aunts and uncles, our cousins, brothers and sisters. And we need to disrupt the narrative. Now, it's interesting. Asians aren't distributed in a normal bell curve. A normal bell curve is, lovely, almost like, any alpine skiers. It's like, yeah, let's go skiing in Vail. It's just beautiful. No disruption. It's nice, right? Asians are bimodally distributed. So, any people that are good mathematicians, what does bimodal distribution mean?
It has 2 modes. It has 2 points where you have majority for different modes.
Yeah, 2 modes, right? Bimodal.
Everybody has the stats, right?
Yeah, everyone's got to take stats. No way to get a PhD without stats. Bimodal distribution of Asian American output. Now, right, so you have low end, poverty, sheltered language, lower health issues, or more complicated health. Then you got the high end, wealthier folk and achievement, right? We really rarely focus on this end. I mean, ask yourself. You might have Asian friends, and you'd be like, "Oh yeah, I remember my friend. He did go to Harvard. I remember him, right?" But we never really. And there's a variety of explanations for that. We live in segregated communities. We watch TV that's very segregated, and we're fed, right, this myth. So we might not come into contact with this population. But believe you me, as a teacher, they exist. Talking about refugees, folks who are learning English, migrants, we got a whole bunch of folks. We tend to perseverate. That's a special ed word, I love that word. Perseverate. We perseverate the hell out of this upper end of people, right? And stereotypes work like that. I mean, stereotypes, they fulfill a cognitive role because when we amass so much amounts of knowledge, we have to categorize them and file them away. I get stereotypes. Stereotypes cognitively are important, but we have to understand that we will remember and we're reinforced every time that we see a model minority, and every time that we come across information that disrupts our understanding, we kind of poo-poo that. Now, if you look at the attainment levels and you disaggregate Asians, right? Because remember I said that the white gentleman, the Taco Bell guy, right? He lumped all Asians together, teriyaki, kimchi, all of these things, these cultural references. And that's problematic. We need to disaggregate it, right? It's very much like chunky peanut butter versus creamy peanut butter. A lot of folk want to make it all creamy, but we have to understand it's crunchy. There's differences, subgroup differences, intra-group differences, and even intergroup differences. There's actually more variation within populations than across them, right? So you got Hmong, Cambodian, Laotian. Look at all the subgroups, and those aren't all the subgroups. There's many more. You can see the differentials in educational attainment. Our model minorities, according to this graph, would be Asian Indians, Taiwanese, Chinese, and Koreans, right? According to the attainment. Here's an analysis of earning power by not only gender, but race. And what you'll see is dramatic, right? Who wants to be the purple lines? I want to be the purple lines. I mean, you're the highest lines on all of them, right? White American men. White women are lower. Clearly there's gender differentials. But notice the Asian American men and Asian American women. Anything stand out to you? On earning power?
That I don't make what other white women Americans with PhDs.
Yeah, exactly. And the other, what about the payoff?
It's not a problem.
What about the payoff? The payoff for higher education?
Well, it's pretty good for our ex-president.
For our ex-president, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lower.
Yeah. He's not Asian. You know, but what does the American dream tell us? That education is a pathway out of poverty into prosperity, and we need high education levels, right? I hope this shows you at least that there is difference. Now, the last two slides. I'd like to talk to you about complicity. I believe I'm the first to use this term in the literature, so please credit me if you do that, but if I'm wrong, then I'll have to apologize to the person. But what I'm calling complicity is Asians or Asian Americans who willingly and knowingly perpetuate the stereotype of the model minority to benefit materially. And I believe Amy Chua to be exceptionally well at doing this. Here's a woman who I believe had family members actually from Champaign, according to Wikipedia. But higher educated, right? Her parents, professors, or grandparents, professors. She's a law professor at Yale. She has an endowed chair of law. An endowed chair is like a primo, it's essentially you've arrived as an academic, right? So here she writes Battle of Him with a Tiger Mother. Anyone read this book? Good, don't waste your time. Don't waste your time, I've read it. But in that book, she really makes this argument that she shares her biography of raising her daughters and how they played at Carnegie Hall and yada, yada, yada. And, oh, by the way, then after the publication of this book, time passed and then her daughter applied and got into Yale and Harvard. So again, the Model Minority Stereotype, Asian American Counterstories, Stereotype Is Problematic, Stereotype Is Problematic. So again, the Model Minority Stereotype, Asian American Counterstories, Stereotype Is Problematic. So again, Here's a woman who wrote a book that supports the stereotype. And then the children, her daughter got into the most prestigious universities. So the public takes it as, wow, that must be the way to raise children to be successful. And you have books like this, How to Raise Your Kid the Asian Way, all this nonsense, right? Complicity. She's back. She's back. The triple package. How 3 unlikely traits explain the rise and fall of cultural groups. Now remember when I talked about Philippe Rushton and others, the penis size and all of those things? Well, she's resurrected these cultural misnomers that culture explains intelligence and race and all this stuff. In this book, she talks about other groups, like Mormons, some other folk I don't want to misstate. But ultimately, again, complicit. This time she writes with her husband. Boycott. Don't buy this book. If you're interested in reading it, get it at a library. Do not let this woman get wealthy off royalties from this nonsense. This is recycled racist stuff that cranial-sized people were trying to do, right? Complicity. Now, Dr. Dean mentioned that I do critical race theory. I'm a critical race theorist. And what that means is a few things. It means I have a set of assumptions about the world. And one of those is racism is ordinary. It's logical, and it's not going away anytime soon. Because it was created in such a way that it's hard to eradicate, right? So, critical race theory has a set of assumptions, and one assumption or understanding tenet is majoritarian stock stories. And majoritarian stock stories are what I shared with you. American dream, meritocracy, colorblindness, post-racialism. Counter stories or narratives contrary to the majoritarian stock stories push back. So counter stories push back against this idea that in America, if you work hard, you'll be rewarded. And counter stories in this book, this forthcoming book, counter stories, I like to share more Asian American counter stories. Personal testimonies, experiences with racism. What does it mean to be Asian in the 21st century? And counter storytelling is a tool that CRT scholars employ to contradict racist characterizations of social life, right? Now, the model minority stereotype is so difficult to wrap our head around because of this misunderstanding that there can exist such a thing as a positive stereotype. So I've heard people say, well, Nicholas, isn't a positive stereotype better than a negative one? I said, break that down for me. I need to hear more. What do you mean by that? Well, you're saying that it's bad to be labeled smart. Well, what's so wrong with that? I wish I was, that's a cool thing. Whenever I hear it's cool, I know immediately where they're at. They need to come and take a course on this. But essentially, it's a single story. If Asians are understood to be all successful, what about the poor kid who actually needs special education? What about the kid who hates math and engineering and would be one hell of an artist, but all the teachers said, no, art's not your thing. You know, you need to be a mathematics specialist. What happens when someone who is Asian internalizes the stereotype to the point that he or she commits suicide because he or she did not rise to the level that the stereotype suggested he or she rise to? You see that time and time again. There's so many dangers of the single story, and there's so many dangers of the stereotype that we don't have time today to delve into. But counter stories counteract and push against these simplistic, facile understandings of what it means to be Asian in the 21st century. Although social scientists tell stories under the guise of objective research and truth, these stories actually uphold deficit, racialized notions about the people of color, right? Thus, a critical race methodology provides a tool to counter deficit storytelling. As education folk in EAF, you have to understand that you are fed on a consistent basis a solid diet of deficit language in very mainstream textbooks. At risk. What does the term at risk mean? That's coded language. It really is. So, as a crit, I use counterstories to counter this deficit storytelling, right? In the name of neutrality, like somehow the scientific method is neutral. No, it's not. Specifically, a critical race methodology offers space to conduct and present research grounded in the experiences and knowledge of people of color. Again, when we read the history books, Ronald Takaki, like in the 90s, he published a book on Asian American history. Since then, there have been following histories, but it's been, for the most part, a white man's history, right? I mean, same for blacks and other groups. They need history books. But especially, Asians are absent and invisible from scholarship. So my kind of motivation, professionally and personally, is to share that, yes, I'll call out folk that there are some Asians who are willingly perpetuating this stereotype to benefit, right? To enrich themselves monetarily, status-wise, influence. And I'll leave it at this one quote, or not quote, one story. Stacey Lee wrote the foreword to the book, and if you haven't read Stacey Lee's work, she's a great person you should look up. She works at Madison, and in graduate school I read her two books, Up Against Whiteness, and her Model Minority book, Unraveling the Model Minority Stereotype. And she talked about how when she tried to get that published with Teachers College Press, they wouldn't take it initially because they're like, who would read this? Well, now it's a seminal piece in the canon. But she wrote the foreword to this Complicity and Counterstory book, and she talked about how there are some Asian groups who they're believing in this colorblind meritocratic logic. They're saying, look, they're writing amicus briefs saying, look, we won't support affirmative action. We're good. And I would argue, no, you're not good. Asians are not good. We need affirmative action. We need to talk about this. And so I found it really interesting, in like a 2-page foreword, she just broke it down, real talk. And she talked about how Asians need to understand, if we were to go back to the slide of triangulation, that we, as Asian Americans, are very much triangulated, and that we need to start building coalitions amongst one another as opposed to fighting and feuding, for crumbs, right? We need to decenter whiteness and really call into question folk of our own kind who are perpetuating things that are not in our best